I've mentioned it before, but I do enjoy a round of Bomberman every so often. A mix of puzzle and action with some downright explosive party modes, Bomberman is always a blast to play. However, what may be sinful to admit in most circles is that I'm not the biggest fan of the Nintendo 64. It's not that I don't appreciate it, but for me, who got the console pretty late in its lifespan, it was mostly a machine for playing Zelda, a little Paper Mario, and a lot of Harvest Moon. But another game that I had really enjoyed might be something of a overlooked title when some folks talk about the Nintendo 64. It's the explosive slinging adventure of Bomberman Hero. Released in 1998, Bomberman Hero is a departure from most Bomberman games, even different from its slightly older sibling, Bomberman 64, which released a year earlier. While both of these games don't feature a rigid, grid-based battlefield filled with hard and soft blocks, Bomberman Hero goes a step further to explore new territory. Instead of the semi-puzzle nature of the classic Bomberman formula, our white Bomberman friend finds himself in a platforming adventure where the bombardments are hand-tossed rather than set down, and jumping from ledge to ledge mixes with quicker, action-based combat. The result is a game so separated from its origins that it hasn't really been replicated since in the series. And while I've always looked back on this game fondly, this is the first time in years I've played through it. So the question is, does the explosive experience of Bomberman Hero hold up? Bomberman Hero finds our hero, Bomberman, in a planet-jumping adventure to rescue Princess Million and prevent the Garridan army from taking back a computer disk she stole to prevent the resurrection of longtime Bomberman rival, Bugler or Bagheera? You know, this dude with the beard. The princess's clunky friend and retainer Piebot travels with Bomberman and provides hints during some levels when you collect a communicator, as well as some timely exposition and direction during the game's cutscenes. Bomberman's adventure is plagued by the minions of Garridan, and he is stopped often by Nitros, with his cool Dragon Ball Z scouter and weird panel boss stage. And just when she's within Bomberman's pom-pom-shaped grasp, Princess Million has a habit of getting scooped up by another of the Garridan army's minions just before Bomberman can enact his rescue. You'll travel between 5 planets, most with several areas of a bunch of levels in each. You're ranked on your score in each level, while bosses need to be defeated quickly to earn a top rank. We'll talk about these scores and how they relate to the game's secrets later. To get the most out of Bomberman Hero, it's best to leave everything you know about Bomberman games aside. Bomberman can run and jump, and your main method of dispatching enemies comes from tossing ordnance at them. One interesting thing I didn't notice until I played through the game a few times is that the bomb toss has a very, almost unnoticeable amount of homing to an enemy nearby, but I do find enemies in the air to be hardest to hit. You could lay down a bomb and wait for it to explode like the good old days, but Bomberman Hero is far too fast-paced for that to really be a winning strategy, though there is some fun to be had and even some utility to dropping a bomb on an enemy while leaping overhead. You can even set a bomb down and kick it too, but throwing bombs is the core mechanic here. There's naturally power-ups here as well, such as increasing the amount of bombs you can throw at once before each explodes and increasing their blast radius. The blast-resistant vest makes a return as well as the incredibly rare and nearly useless remote bomb. Since Bomberman's attacks explode on a direct hit with an enemy, being able to trigger the detonation yourself is nearly useless. Among the less useful power-ups also include the freeze bombs, which trap an enemy in a block of ice to use as a platform, and the salt bombs, which you can use to kill slugs and nothing else. The platforming of Bomberman Hero is where things get a little awkward for me. Bomberman himself controls fine, and he's pretty snappy with his movements. As long as you give him some good momentum on the ground, he can make some pretty impressive jumps. Once you get used to how throwing a bomb feels, control is not really an issue in my mind. Stage design isn't amazing, and sometimes it can feel a little cheap with the distance you're able to see, especially on the sides of the screen. But the levels are decently varied. You'll explore more open areas in some levels, followed by stages with small gimmicks like teleports and moving platforms, as well as areas with more narrow ledges and traps all around. All of it works decently well, though the layouts can feel a little generic as far as platform action games go. At least the levels are designed without a controllable camera in mind because, frustratingly enough, as soon as Bomberman moves after hitting the left or right C buttons, the camera resets. Being so nearly useless, I soon forgot, and I think you would as well, that the camera control is even there. Bomberman's romps around the galaxy take him to some interesting environs, from the bomber-based training grounds to the depths of a volcano, frozen tundras, and dense jungles. There's not a ton of exploring in each level, though several offer hidden exits that will lead to additional stages, and finding secrets like this leads to most of the challenge in the game. Most stages aren't very long, but the sheer number of them make Bomberman Hero a decently lengthy game. It's a bit of a mixed bag, too, in terms of quality, I think. Some levels will feel rich and fun with a good mix of enemies to dispatch and maybe various ways to reach the goal. while others may serve as more of a gauntlet. Levels like these can feel really frustrating as there's no level checkpoints in the game, and dying means doing it all over again. That said, I think the good do outweigh the bad in this case. While not overly reliant on gimmicks, Bomberman Hero isn't afraid to make a level feature something to mix things up and create either an additional challenge or change up how you progress. But it doesn't do this in a way that feels overbearing or inconsistent, which I think most Bomberman titles had always done rather well. Bomberman is able to survive 4 hits before losing a life, but he doesn't heal between stages, which can be extremely frustrating. There are a few ways to heal, but you'll mostly recover with heart panels in several stages, and collecting 200 crystals will increase your life bar. That is, until you get a game over, which resets all your power-ups, or, and this is pretty dumb, if you quit the game. While Bomberman Hero enjoys an autosave feature, each time you select your file and begin playing, you start with your default power levels. That means if you take a break while playing, and the game is long, you'll probably want to, you're starting back with your weakest Bomberman. And while you can replay stages to earn power-ups and farm for crystals, it feels like such a slog that it's really hardly worth doing. While the majority of stages feature Bomberman's jump and toss gameplay, there are several areas where you'll be sent some bomber gear from Bomberman Base. The Bomber Marine for underwater levels turns things into an on-rail shooter, though you can swim backwards to help dodge certain obstacles. The Bomber Jet is similar, being a little faster, but it cannot reverse and has a speed boost instead. There's also the Bomber Copter, where Bomberman floats through the level dropping bombs on enemies below. Curiously enough though, this is the only level type where holding the C buttons to move the camera actually keeps it in that position even if Bomberman moves. And finally, almost like an afterthought, is the Bomber Slider, only appearing a few times, and it lets Bomberman snowboard his way to his goal. These stages are just frequent enough to break up the gameplay nicely, but don't really overstay their welcome, though I would have liked to have seen a few more Copter and Slider levels. There's also a few stages where you ride Louie, but it's only in a few levels and he's more of a cameo rather than an interesting mechanic. Sorry, Louie. Boss fights range from the simple to the frantic, but they hardly feel boring, as each is just different enough from the last to keep things interesting and exciting. Even towards the end of the game where you refight your previously felled foes, the mechanics change to keep the combat fresh. Nitros, the pretty boy bomber with the fancy monocle, is your most encountered foe. He is also, at least for me, the hardest and at the same time most fun boss to fight. You battle him in a panel-filled arena where he can use different attacks based on what panel he's standing on. He can easily jump to avoid your bombs as well, which make Nitros fights very difficult without several bomb-up power-ups. Each time you fight him is a little bit different, and while sometimes annoyingly hard to hit, I really enjoy these fights a lot. Now, we've talked about the gameplay a lot, but let's take a step back to talk about Bomberman Hero's aesthetics. Graphically, I do think Bomberman Hero is only decent. There's a large amount of pop-in for distant enemies and objects, and colors often feel muted or muddy, and are no doubt hindered by the Nintendo 64's generous application of anti-aliasing smear. The occasional pop of color is nice, but a lot of the outdoor levels can really feel drowned out, the mountain areas especially, though they at least feel distinct from planet to planet, although the overall presentation suffers from being a little generic in my mind overall. The writing and cutscenes also feel like a step back from Bomberman 64, and the cast of characters is pretty uninteresting overall. Bosses are only relevant when they're trying to stop your quest, Piebot's explanations are fittingly robotic for the bucket of bolts, and Princess Million barely can get a word in while she's being downright helpless. And honestly, the bosses overall may be pretty zany, but I've always enjoyed the fun bad guy bombers found in most other games in the series. Not a lot of that here. I also think the presentation lacks the overall Bomberman charm with the overly cute characters and enemy design. While the foes still have the zany design found in other games, cute is not a word that ever came to my mind while playing. So no, Bomberman Hero is not the most impressive looking title on the N64, but the music? Now that's another story. The drum and bass soundtrack to Bomberman Hero is another way it feels separated from the games in the series, and it's an absolute high point for the title. If you've heard anybody talk about Bomberman Hero, chances are the soundtrack was the first thing they mentioned. It doesn't sound like anything you'd think about when hearing the word Bomberman, but it's amazingly groovy and incredibly unique, and somehow, despite or maybe in addition to Bomberman Hero's unique position in the Bomberman catalog, the soundtrack fits perfectly well. The goal of Bomberman Hero is to save Princess Million and stop the Garridan army, and beating all 5 worlds is a fun accomplishment in itself. The final boss is a real gauntlet with several forms and no chance to heal, but it's satisfying to defeat. However, there's plenty more to Bomberman Hero than just saving the day. If you want to get the full Bomberman Hero experience, let me stop you right there and say that I don't think it's worth it. First, you'll need to find the 24 ADOC bombs hidden in levels in the first 4 worlds. This is the easiest part, and the ADOC bombs themselves provide a fun challenge to find them in the handful of game levels they're in. But that's not all. To unlock the secret final world of Gothic Star, you'll also need to earn a perfect 5 rank on each level in the game. In other words, getting 5 gold ranks on all 5 worlds. So that's meeting or exceeding the target score in each level and beating bosses within a certain amount of time. There's a great sense of pride when you can earn a 5 on your first jaunt through a level, but it's a grueling slog when you're trying to do it afterwards, especially when you come so damn close to the target score.
I did it!
Not quite, Bomberman. Not quite. Once you've got a gold rank on all 5 worlds and all 24 ADOC bombs, you'll unlock Gothic Star, a short world with 2 levels and a final boss. And getting a gold rank on Gothic Star will get you the rest of the unlockables. But again, this is more work than pleasure, but you've come this far, might as well go all the way. First, and incredibly disappointingly, is a snowboard race with a punk snowman in a very slightly remixed level you've already played that lasts less than a minute. Another is what you would hope for be a cool cosmetic upgrade you can take into any level with you, a sign that you've completed the game. But Golden Bomber turns out to mostly be a set of remix levels, removing the vehicle from the on-rail gear levels and putting Bomberman and his shiny gold self on the ground. Really, hardly worth it. The final unlockable secret is Million's Treasure Hunt, which you'd think might be a hard mode for the main game, but is instead just another jaunt to find hidden items, sort of a reshuffling of the ADOC bombs from the main game. There's also a quick, fun, and painless secret you get by smashing the start button rapidly in the game's opening movie, and it's found in the file select screen. This is more of a set of extra stages and it doesn't affect anything else, but at least you can access it whenever you want, level records be damned. Despite the reward of some of these secrets better being unearned, Bomberman Hero is a game I loved as a kid, and honestly I still really enjoy it, though I would hardly say it's a definitive Bomberman experience, as it is so wildly different. The gameplay is largely snappy and fun, and it's broken up with a variety of stages and mechanics to keep things interesting and fresh. Plus, that music is so unique that you can't help but play to listen to the next tune. Even though it has already distinguished itself from other Bomberman titles, the complete lack of multiplayer battle mode makes Bomberman Hero even more of an outcast. A totally different beast than the other Bomberman titles on N64, Bomberman Hero offers a different style of gameplay we've not seen in the series again. Bomberman 64 and Second Attack are certainly excellent games with a formula more rooted in the original style of Bomberman gameplay, and you could argue those titles evolved in the mechanics found in Bomberman Generations and Bomberman Jetters a few years later. Bomberman Hero still remains a game that tried to shift Bomberman into new territory. Maybe thanks to Bomberman's slight comeback with Super Bomberman R a few years ago, we'll see more Bomberman titles one day, though I have my doubts we'll ever see a title quite like Bomberman Hero ever again.